Hey, welcome everybody. This is, you're kind of wondering why Live Life Podcast is a little bit earlier today. Well, my bad. It looks like I posted the scheduling, and Facebook made it a little bit earlier than YouTube, which is kind of odd, but it did it anyways. Welcome to podcast episode number 8. And yep, I'm still here in Gaylord, Michigan. And man, the first thing I got to do is I got to say I'm so sorry for all my Texas friends out there that had to suffer the last couple of weeks. And it was interesting because a week before I was watching people talking about getting a cold, and I was just be like, oh, that's so cute. You're 5 degrees, you're 10 degrees, you know. But then reality hit. And then when they got hit with snow and the freezing and everything else, Texas is just not prepared for that. And anyways, my heart goes out to a lot of friends and folks that now they're back in the 60s and are getting there. And they've had to go through bursting pipes and just all kinds of stuff. I mean, could you imagine not having electricity for 3 or 4 days, having it for 30 minutes at a time, and then just having to boil water to have water? Water's turned off, and there's just all kinds. Everybody's across Texas, across the panhandles, were just having miserable time. And I can't, I can't, I have nothing for that. I mean, other than I'm sorry they had to go through it. My wife and I in 2000, I believe it was 2019. It was 27 hours without electricity in 10 to 14 degree weather. And the house got as cold as about 48, 49 degrees. We only had the fireplace. So we had to sleep in the fireplace floor up in the living room, and till the electricity came on. And it made me realize that I can't go another winter without having a generator. But anyways, hey, welcome to the podcast. So let's get started because I've got some really good stuff for you today. So watch the intro because it's pretty cool. All right, welcome to episode 9 right here with Live Live Podcast. It's really more like 15 or 20 or whatever it is, but we decided to make it an official when we decided to do the new site. I'm going to spend a moment here, and I want to talk about Clubhouse. Are you on Clubhouse? Because if you're not, you're missing out. You know, we have all these different social media platforms, from Facebook to YouTube to Instagram to Pinterest to Twitter to, I mean, it's just TikTok, Parler. I don't know. There's so many apps that are out there. But if you haven't been on Clubhouse, Clubhouse is still in beta. But I will tell you there's some really good things. And obviously, like anything else, there's pros and cons to all social media platforms. But Clubhouse has allowed me to, I'm an introvert by nature. But I like to, once I get with a social crowd, I like to get out there and be. So it kind of turns me into a social butterfly. And that's what Clubhouse is doing. It's allowed me to connect with some people. It's allowed me to have conversations with people, meeting people across the world, really. But there's some good things and there's some bad things. The bad things is, there's a lot of people in there trying to sell and trying to talk about their business and everything. And there's some people that don't know how to moderate it and how to process it very well. So it makes it into a negative side. But if you want to know a little bit about it, go to livelifepodcast.com and go to my blog, my latest blog in there. I talked about Clubhouse. That's kind of part 1. I'm going to talk about part 2 this next week. And it's kind of the ins and outs and how to find your tribe and how to get rid of the riffraff and how to turn out the noise and just be you and enjoy the app for what it is. It's an opportunity for a drop-in audio. It's a social voice only. So think of it as talking to your best friends on a conference call or party line. That's just what it is. There's all kinds of things that you can talk about and get where you need to go. And, so it's a good app. So if you haven't gone on there yet, I could invite you because it is beta and you have to be invited only, but find somebody. I would say get on your Facebook page and LinkedIn page or something and say, hey, is anybody on Clubhouse? And get on it. And I'll tell you a really quick short story. So Amy Cotta, shout out to you out there. She is a Marine veteran, a good friend of mine, and through a colleague, through a nonprofit partner organization through Carry the Load. And I was talking to some people one day and I said, hey, you should use Clubhouse as a social media platform. And I'm telling you, this girl, she is a social media butterfly when it comes to Clubhouse. I've seen her do show after show after show after show, and she is rocking it. She is taking every single advantage of meeting new people, making new connections, and making it work for her. So go out and check out Clubhouse. And if you're interested, you want to know a little bit more, hit me up on livelifepodcast.com. This is episode 9, and I have a great guest today. Most of the time I would tell you that the guests, my friends, the colleagues, people that are going to come on here. You might not know this person. But I met him through a really good friend of mine, through Doug Bryant, through Project Relo, one of our directors. And I found out, this guy's a motivational speaker. He's played pro football before. He's written a book. He's got a great family. He's had a great life. He enjoys it. And he's just an overall, all-around great person. And after talking to Doug, Harvie's got some great subjects that we're going to talk about today. I got a lot of questions for it, and I'm probably going to trump him up like I did Herschel Metcalf not too long ago. I'll ask him some questions, and it'll be interesting to see what the answers are going to be. But this is all about sharing the life. Our motto here is live life. Don't let life live you. And without further ado, we are going to bring in Harvie Herrington. How are you, my friend? Oh, hold on. Let me unmute you. Or you need to unmute. There we go.
There you go. I'm
all
good.
Right.
How are you?
I am great, my friend. What's the weather? Are you in Texas? Where are you at?
No, I'm in Iowa.
You're in Iowa. Okay. So you're up here where it's cold too.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not 0 degrees, but
oh no, we've been below until just here the last 2 or 3 days. We've got I would say, I'm sitting here looking out the window of my sunroom. We probably have had 40 inches of snow this winter.
Yeah.
And most of it stayed around. This is the first time we're level upon level that it stayed, which
so we're in the same boat.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. We live by our fireplace too. Now we have our heat and everything, but I just actually had another load of wood come in this weekend.
Awesome. Yeah. I bought somewhere between 5 and 10 cords not too long ago, and it's lasted me last winter, and it'll last me this winter. Probably one more winter. We're not burning it as much this winter as we thought we would.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we've had probably, I would say, well, I can tell you that in some areas of the yard, I have an area where it kind of goes downhill, and I've fallen into a hole. It's been 3 or 4 feet deep, and forgetting what's underneath there because of all the snow. I was just lollygagging around out there going, you know what? I need to get some firewood. And I just traveled over to the firewood area. And all of a sudden, whoop, I am down waist deep. And my wife's looking out the window with the 2 dogs, and she took a picture. She's laughing at me. I totally forgot that it drops off, and I just went straight in. So needless to say, snow shovel, 20 minutes later, moving the snow out of the way to get to the firewood. Yeah, and by the time I got the firewood in the house, I'm not sure about you, but I was tired. I was like, yeah, we're not running a fire right now. We'll do that later this evening. I'm just too tired to get over there. I'm too pooped.
Yeah, we stack ours pretty close to the house. I don't have far to go. Plus, we stack a little bit in the garage as well.
We do the same thing. It's just
we're going through a lot of wood with our kids.
Are you?
Home. Yeah. Normally, most of the times I wouldn't start the fireplace until right before the kids get home. But with our kids being home all year due to COVID, we've just been burning through the wood. I bought 3 loads more than I normally would purchase, and we went through all of that. Plus, I'd say a quarter of it got covered up from the bottom, the bottom from all the snow. So just had to get another load in to get us through.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, listen, having fires, man, there was a week or two there where we had fires every night. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm. We love it.
But you do burn through it. Yep, you do. So let's kind of get our listeners catch up to date with you. If we kind of go back in your history, you played pro football for a while, and what'd you do before that?
Before football, I mean, it was just right out of college. So
right out of college, you went straight into
right
football.
Out of college, straight into football. I played until I was 32, and in the process of that, opened a couple of businesses and got into coaching. And just my whole life and circle was sports.
Now, did you do any business while you were playing football? Did you open, or was those kind of transition to you?
I planned to before I got out of it, so I opened up a fitness facility where I lived, and we started doing that in the process because I knew I was coming. How old was I? 27. I knew I was coming close to the end of it, especially with a bunch of the surgeries and injuries that I had beforehand and afterwards even. So
you had a plan. You knew that there was a time that this is going to be a time for me to retire, and I've got to start figuring out what my exit strategy is. And it's unfortunately, I know it's football is like military. It's when you have a career, and some people don't position themselves, unfortunately, until the day hits, and then it's like, oh snap, what do I do now? And I was just gonna say, I know a lot of guys back in the day, like Randy White. He had a farm, and he just had a lot of little things of agriculture that were going on, and he wasn't making a whole lot of money in football. So him and Bob Ford and a few other guys, they had their self set up. And you can look at like Tony Dorsett, same thing, had things set up along the way. But I've known some guys that have gone in and played football for 10 and 12 years, and then they did nothing, zero. And then when they're out, they're out. And it's hard.
That's unfortunate. That's the story of a high percentage of players. Mine was a bit of luck as well. I needed a place, and like I said, I started helping out with high school sports while I was playing. So it was just a thing to do, and it was a dream of mine as a kid to own a gym. So I can't sit here and tell you that I had this major plan. I just knew that I wanted to be a business owner. I knew I wanted to work for myself. And that started it. So
that's awesome. What was your if you had to tell somebody what your struggle was your first 2 years, as an entrepreneur going from pro football to an entrepreneur, what was your struggle? Do you remember what that was?
Going from a football player to a struggle? No, there really wasn't, because I stayed in my circle. I would think if as athletes that got outside of their circle would have more. I didn't have any struggles. It just kept going. I filled the void of playing with coaching and adding value to young men.
So it was a good thing for you to just adapt into it.
I didn't have those struggles. I missed the game. Yeah, because I stayed in my circle. I didn't step out of my circle. I didn't do anything out of the ordinary. So no, there wasn't a struggle. I loved doing what I was. That's why I speak. I was blessed to know what my love was and move from one stage of it to the next.
So you go play, you come out of college, go play in pro football, and then you found your niche to do something different, and you rolled into that. And at some point, where did you get the mindset to think that I need to either spread my wings, I need to share the information, I need to be public speaking? Where did that happen? Was that in the process of you being an entrepreneur? Did something kind of happen for you to get there?
It was an 18-year process. That's why when you go back,
happen overnight.
No, it didn't. I had no idea I would be doing this. I thought I would coach for the rest of my life. I thought I would live in a little community I lived in and raise our children for the rest of my life there. It went from one thing to the other. I had no idea that God would call me to do this. I became the motivator of all of our teams throughout the years. And I just start studying and researching, and all the material that I was compiling up here, I was using it to help student athletes. And then before you know it, I got kids coming from different parts of the state. I got adults working with adults, and everything I was doing, it became less about the fitness and football industry to this. It became, how do you help a human being be their best, so everything in their life is better? And it just kept rolling into that for me. I didn't see it happening. I didn't know it was happening. One day I just knew I want to speak. I want to travel around. I want to help kids. That's why I wrote my first book. I want to give kids knowledge that'll help them be better not in sports. There's nothing about, I think I got a small little section about exercising in my book. It's more about the mind, how strong you can be. So it compiled into that. Now I'll tell you, I read a lot of content, a lot of videos, a lot of tapes. I'm gonna date myself by saying tapes.
A lot of research, yes.
On motivational type stuff. So I was being fed and I didn't know it, but I was giving it back. I was giving it back, and it just rolled into this.
That is so powerful right there. And that, finding that niche, finding what your comfort is. Sometimes some people do research, some people don't. I have to research. I have to figure out where am I going? What's my end game? I might understand the brain and where I need to be, but if I'm going to go into a room, and I know you probably went through this, you probably got to the point where you're like, hey, I'm going to go do my first gig here, and I'm going to walk in there. Do you remember how large your audience was? And do you remember what you felt?
Yeah, it was a group of teachers instead of students. I didn't know that there was even a need for what I was doing for teachers. I wasn't nervous. It's hard to explain. No, it's not hard to explain. When you know you're doing something for someone else and doing something good, sure, you wonder, okay, all of these adults, I've been used to working with kids. What am I going to say to help them? I've questioned that the whole time, every time I work with adults. But I bring it back to, Harvie, this is content that you've studied, that you've gone through for yourself, that you've implied, and you're only doing that. When I go to speak to corporations, I don't go to talk to them about doing their jobs. I don't know anything about their jobs. I go to talk to them about how they become the best them. So that, for me, gets me over any fear, because it was my very first one. What was the school? Was a school within a very bad community, and the teachers were broken. The longest tenured teacher was 6 years.
Wow.
But they needed what I had to share, and I consider them to be my adopted school, because they're only about 100 miles away from me. So I go there as often as I can, because I know those students and those teachers need me. So
right.
I didn't have that fear. Nervous, yeah. I was nervous every football. I used to throw up on my way running down the field.
Really?
Football. First play of the game. If I didn't throw up before a game, something was wrong.
Something was wrong with Harvie. Yeah.
Something was wrong. I didn't. I mean, I've thrown up on television, coming out of my mask, going back on kickoff, and the anxiety or the nervousness of it, but the love of it pulls me through that every single time. There's nothing more important than knowing what you're supposed to do.
That, you know what? You're probably, I'm going to be real honest with you. I think you're the first person that I've heard tell me about a story pre-game and throwing up.
I haven't heard enough stories.
Well, yeah, I guess not, because for me, I ran pro track. So, when I was 110 hurdles out of high school, and I was getting ready to go to the Olympics and everything. And I just had a lot of things that were going on at the time. And when I was in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade running hurdles, it was easy. It just coach told you what to do and you ran, right? And you do your first 2 years in high school, you're like, you just run, you just keep doing it. Then your coach comes to you and says, okay, now we're going to get serious. And it's like, wait a minute, this is no longer fun for a minute. Now you're telling me about the competition. You're telling me about the schools and the people that I'm going to meet abroad, and I had to find a niche like you, but my friends, if I wasn't standing off somewhere off to the side with sunglasses on and music bursting in my ears and jumping up and down and having an anxiety fit, something was wrong. Yep. And they would come and check on me. They would force me to go over there. I didn't throw up, but I had this overwhelming sweat of anxiety. And it's like, because I don't know what's about to happen. I'm about to run with people I've never met before. And I don't know how good they are, because there's no research, right? There's nothing. I'm not going to check these guys out. Right. But the minute, and I know you probably felt the same thing getting on the field, the moment that I got close to my blocks and I was in my lane, I was now in my zone. And that was it. Once I got there, I didn't care about anything else. I didn't think about anything else. Took my sunglasses off, put my clothes behind the back of the blocks, and I was ready for the gun to go off. And that was it.
The third hit for me, until I realized you get that first and second hit out of the way pre-game. For me, it was, I had to get that first hit out of the way. I had to get it out of the way. And then when I did that, golden.
Now, do you share these stories with any of your motivational speaking? Do you tell some of these things about the
No.
anxiety and
No, because I do it in a different way. I teach
okay.
the personalities. I discovered the 4 personalities. I do the disc because I think it's the simplest to get the kids' minds. I thought how the depression and anxiety and all of that stuff plays a role in your person. So I teach that. I'm so far removed from football. I need that. I don't need to use that. Of course, it's in my bio. Of course, it helps me for people to
Right.
know that I played some form of football. But the first thing I tell people, I ain't nobody. You look me up now. Back in the day, I was nobody. I never started in the NFL. I never started. Other teams, arena football, and all what was it, NFL Europe and all that. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I never was anybody special. I was a guy chasing a passion and a dream like crazy. So that's I don't ever feel the need to do that unless I'm talking to a group of athletes. Then I can share that story because it's more relatable.
So let me ask you a question. Through all this process, do you have a motto that you've lived by, that's something that's stuck with you since coming out of high school and it's been with you, or even later on in maybe pro football, maybe it was in college, but do you have something that you live by, something that makes you strive every day to continue doing what you do?
Yeah. How do you beat a person that won't quit?
That's awesome.
You
How do you be
can't.
a person that won't quit? Yeah.
When in my old fitness, my last gym I had, when you walk through the door, the first thing you saw on the opposite side of the wall was that statement. And on the, up here, when they left the gym, the last thing they saw on the wall was "you can't." Was the
Hmm.
answer to that. So they walked in, they got their butts kicked by me and an environment that I created for them, and they walked out with "you can't." That's the answer to that question. You cannot defeat a person that won't quit. It's a
That's
mindset.
awesome.
Yeah.
And so do you still have the gym now, or is that still running?
No, I gave all of that up to do what I'm doing now.
Okay. So
I
you're full-time into motivational speaking, talking to corporations, talking to students and kids, and still
Mhm.
talking to teachers?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. All right. Awesome.
First one I did this year through COVID times.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about COVID. So in an area of the rationale is I've got to be in front of thousands of people and I've got to be able to talk to these people. And then all of a sudden, COVID starts to hit and that just the brakes come on, you halt and you're like, wow, now I can't go in. I can't talk to people personally.
Mhm.
So did you adapt to do it virtually? Did you find an avenue or did you have to take some time off to pivot yourself into a different role, or how did that
Well,
work out for you?
it shut our industry down.
Yeah, completely almost, I'm
Shut it
sure.
down. Uh, most people didn't get rolling again until the fall. Everything that I've looked at, everybody had to shut down. There's no, and we're now this. There's very few people. I saw a guy post, he was on a plane headed somewhere to speak for someone. I just booked one with the corporation Caterpillar, and they're wanting me to come in this summer, but we're not sure. So we're preparing to do either or, virtually or live.
Right.
And they know that I've dealt with cancer during this COVID stuff too. So I think our industry, honestly, I think COVID has been good for our industry, to be honest. That's just between you and I and the audience. There's so many people that get into speaking that are, what's the right way to put it? They're too young, too inexperienced.
Yeah.
You got to have some dirt in your fingernails to be able to share stuff with people most of the time. You have to have done something to pick up a book and read a book and go share that with people. People see that, they sense that. I don't, like me, I don't step outside of my boundary. I don't share anything with you that has not personally affected my life in a negative or positive way that I can share with you. I'm not going to talk to you about something I have no clue about. And our industry is starting to get full of that. Just
Yeah.
and I don't want to shoot anybody down and saying you can't do this, because I believe everybody can do everything, but I believe that you're more relatable to people
Yeah.
when you have some personal stories, when you got, whatever they call it, skin in the game, teeth, whatever in the game. So, but no, our industry is just starting to move again, and people are doing this and trying to rebook and going virtually. And it's hard for some people to go virtual. because a lot of people
Yeah.
need that interaction, and it's different. I actually enjoyed it because with students, this past fall, here's what a speaker does. A speaker comes in and tells you some story or teach you something if you're doing a workshop, and he or she's gone. That's it. I learned that a motivational speaker, a keynote is more entertainment than not. If people take a good nugget out of it, that's great. I love to do. I tell every school that brings me in, I was like, I want to stay the day. I'll my keynote, I'll share my story, but all it does was break down a wall for your students to know who I am, and now I can teach them something for you. So I've been working with schools all over the country, not all over, pretty much on the East Coast, which is weird. Did a keynote, and then we do 5 sessions after that. And then you can get the kids talking. You can answer some questions. You can work with them. If you can't tell, my heart is with the kids.
Yeah.
I make my money with the adults, but my heart is with them. So,
well, you got to get to the adults to get to the kids.
Yeah.
That's where the money's at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the relationships that you're building are with the kids, because that's the future you're trying to change.
Absolutely.
It's interesting. We have some of the same past, because I do the same thing, but the motivational part that I speak in is front of veterans. Mm-hmm. And we do corporate America as well, because there's 2 facets of our organization that I do in the philanthropy nonprofit world, outside of my own radio and everything else that I do in the company, is we try to change the narrative, because you've got students, you've got companies, you've got futures, you've got all kinds of things that happen in the process that you're helping these children have a better future, mm-hmm. being more positive towards themselves, right? Veterans are somewhat in the same situation. They're forced to not have any mind control. They're forced to come in and do what their commanders tell them to do. And for however many years that is, they don't think for themselves. They just do their job. And then they try to have a normal life between kids and family. If some of them can, some of them don't. But then there's the corporate side. The corporate side has no understanding. They don't understand veterans whatsoever. They don't understand the industry. They just said, you know what? They just went off to take a blank check and go serve and protect the country. So protect the country is the only thing they know. But when we talk to the corporate, we try to explain to them that you're part of the problem, not understanding the value of hiring these veterans, because you're looking at them as that's a separate entity. And I look at it like this, Harvie, is, you and I are human being first, and then we're man or woman next, right? Mm-hmm. The process, this is our best friend that we deal with every single day. It's inside of our mind, and our mind controls anything we want. We can listen to it, or we can not listen to it. We can take action by just having a gut feeling, or just being assertive or aggressive in where we want to go and not listening. But when you do listen, you can make a lot of changes. And we're finding out that when you talk to corporate America and you try to get them into a different mindset, a lot of things change in that conversation. And it kind of opens their eyes up to some degree, because they're like, look, why is it that you have to put a name on military? Why can't a person come out of high school, go straight into military? But that's a career. Corporate is a career. They're just 2 different job processes, mm-hmm. 2 different entities, 2 different sectors, if you want to call it. But at the end of the day, they come back and they're human being. So why do we have to separate it? And that's the narrative that we're trying to change. I feel like that's what you're trying to do with kids, and just trying to get companies to understand, if you don't go through things in your life and you don't share that, I feel like that you get bogged down by, you're not doing anything. You're making an impact. And my heart, I think, is like your heart. You've got to go out and make an impact. If you can change one kid, not change many, but if you can change one kid, and that's going to be my next thing. My next question to you is, have you had a kid that you've motivated, you've talked to, you've seen, and whether it's months or years, it doesn't matter either way, but have you seen that person change? And did you sit down one day and go, holy smokes, I changed that person's life?
I don't like to, it's my personality. I just like to do things without everybody wants, let me say this, everybody needs, wants, and desires a pat on the back. I'm not one that really likes to, especially brag. I'll say this, and I'm just going to read this. and I could share with you many stories. I'll start here. My oldest group of football players are now 40 or 41. I would bet in 18 years, 19 years, whatever it's been, out of every class, that grade that went through, I have a kid I'm still connected to.
That's awesome.
That's one of the things I fell in love with about Facebook is I stalk my kids. I use that term because people like, yeah, I do. I watch them. I watch them grow up. I try and get to know their spouses. When you're 40 years old and you're invited to be not to be at a wedding, but be in the wedding of a young man that's getting married, and he's 22 or 23, it feels good because you did something in that young man's life. So I'm just going to read. This came in last night at like 11:30 to me. And this is from a kid I met in college. Just read this real quick. It says, "Hey, Mr. Harvie." He calls me Mr. Harvie. He's from Texas, but I met him at a college. He's playing basketball at a college in Iowa. How are you? How have you been? A lot of things have happened throughout the course of the last year and this year as well. Hope you're doing well. Out of nowhere. And I said, "What's up, young man? I'm doing great. How are you? What are you up to? Glad you're doing well. I've been doing great myself. A few days ago, I was on a podcast with KIS Public Radio where I was blessed with an opportunity to share. So we're just conversing back and forth. I met this young man one time, and I always leave it open. I tell those kids, if you got a question, send me an email. I promise you I'll get back, and it won't be my assistant. It'll be me, and I can remember talking, because very few do. You feel like you may be overwhelmed by it, and maybe someday I will be, and things will change. But very few do, whether they're afraid or you didn't reach them or whatever. But there's always one or two that sends that email, that reaches out. And this young man, I remember his conversation because he emailed me. It was just a keynote. By the time I got in my car, I had an email from him. And we're chatting. Don't do this, but we're chatting on the road as I'm headed home in the middle of nowhere, Iowa, with this young man. So I don't know what the number, I don't care what the number is. I love being a positive voice in these kids' heads. I've adopted this model too. I got 2 ears with no opinion. So they know they can call me and share their thoughts and what's going on and not be judged. I'm not a parent, so I don't have to be like, hey, are you sure? I just listen. And right. that helps with that by just being a good listener. I read Empathic Listening, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I have chapter 5. I've read it 100 times. I've listened to it 100 times. I try to be an empathic listener. Take these things off and put yours on and listen to what you're saying from your perspective. Because I got 3 young kids that if I don't do that, I'm going to screw up somehow as a parent. So I know I kind of bounced away from your question, but there's many.
No, that's awesome.
And again, I'm not that. Please don't take that as bragging. It's a blessing.
No, not at all.
A blessing that God gives me that I can do this, that I haven't coached in 7 years. And I talk to all of these kids, young men, young women, right. People in general that I've worked with.
Sometimes we have to understand in our hearts that bragging it drives a little bit more humble. I have a mentor that's been helping me in the last couple of years. And one thing that always comes back to mind is being humble. Share your resources, share your information, share your story. And what's interesting is I'm 55. I don't know that I remember all the things that I did, whether good, bad, or indifferent. I just, like you, I lived my life. I just kind of went from one thing to the next. And if something doesn't work out, I go to the next thing. I've been a serial entrepreneur and I've got to where I own several businesses, and then that didn't work out. I went helping a lot of nonprofits and that didn't work out. But I just kind of rolled with the punches, But a couple of years ago, I found a person that spoke to me, And it, I have to say that it was in my 40s. But what inspired me from this was I was the guy that's out there waving my hands, not bragging. I was doing the social good. I was helping anybody and everybody. I was spreading myself thin. And then I realized that my friend said, stop. You need to tell people about what you've done. You've done all these different things, and you do have a great philosophy. You have a great mentality. You have something you can value. But what you're doing is you're degrading yourself. You're not talking about your values. It's not bragging. It's just you got things you need to share, because if you can change one person, you've done it, right? Well, what it came to me, and this is a question I'm going to ask you, this was a question that was asked to me, and I could not answer it that day because I was told the conversation, the context of the conversation was very serious at the time. So I took it very serious and said, I'll get back to you, because I had to really think about it. But some people have asked this question too. They've answered it really quickly. At some point in your life, you will not be here on this planet, and you're going to want to leave a legacy, so to speak. What is your fear of something that you didn't accomplish while being here in this lifetime?
Being a great dad and husband.
That's awesome. And some people can't talk about that. Some people go to, well, I didn't change enough lives, or I didn't make an impact, or I don't feel like I did anything. And it comes down to this conversation. You have 2 feet, Harvie, and you have a mind, you have a heart and a soul. And every morning you get up, your destination is your future, right?
Mm-hmm.
People think and they overthink. And the accomplishments of your future, you can't change your future. You can't change your past, and you can't change your future. You can change right now. Mm-hmm. Right now will change your future. But the mindset that some of these young athletes, these young kids get into is they think, give me, and I want the future. You're not working on today. Work today to get to tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Change today to change the future. And for me, I had this whole social media, I'm doing great everywhere. And if I could tell a lot of young students these days to find a mentor, find somebody that they can look up to. Okay. And look, it may be your dad, and maybe it's your mom, maybe it's your brother, maybe it's somebody that's a personal friend, but find somebody that can motivate you in a positive manner. And if you're not happy, find a motivator, find somebody that can get you there, find a guidance counselor, find somebody that can lead you, and stop listening to the noise. It's hard, because I know you go through this with kids. It's very hard because they're turned in so many different directions. Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know how that works for you. I don't, because I do this with some veterans, and these are guys that are, they're 18, 19, 20 years old, but most of them seem to be 25 to 27. They've already had a little life. Right. But it's hard for these guys. For you, you're talking to younger kids, and then you're watching them grow up. I may never see some of these guys again. Mm-hmm. But when you're listening to their stories, it's unfortunate. Some of it has to go in one ear and out the other, and you're only going to be able to hit a few of those. So for you to share a story of somebody that you're still connecting with years down the road, man, I applaud you for that, because that's an accomplishment. That's you've changed somebody's life years and years ago, and you continue to change their lives because their mind is, Harvie's been a mentor to me. He was a guide. He was somebody that helped me in a direction. Mm-hmm. So let's go back a little bit. 2020 came up, and you mentioned it earlier. You had received a notice about getting cancer. Mm-hmm. And this was, I think you said January of 2020.
Yeah. Yep. January. And, I started having complications in January. It was confirmed probably right about now or early February last year.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so you spent a month in that mindset, trying to figure out what you're going to do for you, your family. You had a lot of things probably rolling through. But it sounds like you were just a guy, you know what, we're going to tackle this day by day, and we're going to work on this.
It was day by day for a short period of time. I don't know how much your audience, but I'm a Christian, and I'm proud of it. I was, when you got young kids and you get news like that, because then I mean, when we were told it had to come out, I had to have my kidney removed. I had it removed in May.
Right.
Fear. outright, flat out fear, and then you got COVID, and you're finding out that COVID makes people with underlying illnesses. And I'm a fairly healthy guy, and I come out of this with blood pressure problems, as a diabetic after this, and just I went from this guy, healthy Mr. Fitness, to we hit it. We took it head on. Lots of prayer that gave me. I just finished telling a guy this. I sit in several Bible study groups. So before I'm really telling anybody, this Friday morning, I'm sitting in a Bible study group, and this was before COVID shut us down. We're sitting in Hardee's. It's a little local restaurant, and we're talking. And we got another friend that we thought was dying. We heard some bad news. He went to Texas to visit his family and had some head issues. They put him in the ER and then had to fly him to what's the hospital in Minnesota? Anyway, yeah, the big one.
Yeah.
Had to fly him to there, and so we're just all bad news. And I'm sitting there listening to us talk about that, and I didn't tell anybody yet. And then I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks later, he comes walking in our meeting, and he's got this book bag on, and we're all like, holy cow. And he stands there and he said, guys, I don't know if I'm out of the woods yet, but he's like, I was all worked up. All of his kids he and his wife's kids are grown, but he's like, I was all worked up and I was all scared. And he said, and I started remembering, God's got me. He's got me. And so he didn't know what I was going through. And at that moment, I said, you're right. And from that day forward, up here, I was good. I'm not going to tell you, I still wasn't scared, but scared. It was a different fear. Even when it comes to the point of, you got to have this removed, but everything in the world is shut down. So we can't schedule you until May. And I'm going to emergency room visits because my kidney is falling apart. But just all of this stuff, fear, pain, all of this, I was good. It's even hard to explain in a short period of time like this, of just really letting someone know how God gave me strength to. I was in and out of surgery in 24 hours. I had a kidney removed. I went in the hospital at 11. I was on the table, because this is how they do it with COVID. I was on the table by 12:30. I checked out the next day at 11 o'clock. It was a mindset. I went in that hospital saying, I'm leaving here tomorrow on my feet, and just, but it was rough because we had to do some things. What's going on with the body? What is this? Kids, we got 2 kids with minor not kidney, but lung issues. So it's attacking the lungs. So we pulled our kids out of school before they shut the school down. Our kids, my son, you probably can hear him making noise right now, sitting on the couch. I'm a 3rd grade teacher because of COVID. I gotta.
You never thought you'd have that job role, did you?
Brother, let me tell you. But it's you know what? It depends on how you look at things. When my son and I sat down at the table last fall when we started school, it was this until we figured things out, and it's still this every once in a while. But for me, and I hope for him, he'll never forget who his 3rd grade teacher was. And our girls that are, one of my daughters here, one went to Nana's over the weekend. So I don't want to make it seem like it's been roses, but because of a mindset, we've been able to handle it. Is there anxiety going on? Is there probably mild depression going on? Sure. When you're on lockdown like we've been, we've had to,
right.
Plain and simple. We've had to do the overprotective, spray everything down because, so, I don't know. Maybe I got off track there with your question.
No, you're good. People want to hear your story. I mean,
COVID hit, but that's a part of what I've done for myself through all of this reading. Let me tell you who my dads are. My dad's name is Zig Ziglar. He's been dead for how many years? My dad's name is Les Brown. My real father is God, obviously, but I'm just telling you talked about finding mentors. I'm not going to have time to tell you my whole story here, but I didn't have a dad. So I stole things from men that didn't know it. I was learning from people. And then when I was introduced to the world of motivational speaking content and information, I just gobbled it up. I am a walking, talking, it's all up here. I can quote it and give it to you and not even know where it came from, but I got my go-to guys,
Right.
And Zig Ziglar is my go-to guy. And
That's awesome. Did you ever meet Zig Ziglar?
I got to hear him speak, but it was after he fell.
Okay.
So it was when his daughter traveled with him, and she kind of led him along with questions, but it was at the end of his life. I wish I had gotten to sooner, but I was at least honored to be in person and hear that old Southern crawl in person. But
so one of my really good friends, Andy Costa, was his filmographer. He was the one that walked him around. He was his camera guy. He's now doing it for his son, and they continue the legacy on, and he still does the teachings and stuff. And so Andy does that. That's one of his biggest customers. But for years he did it with Zig Ziglar. And the interesting thing about when we talk about mentors and people, I love how these are my fathers, right? Because that's somebody that you portrayed, somebody you followed on, and you stuck with it. Your family, you're talking about your kids, and you're talking about going through cancer, and then COVID hit, and then the transition of having to be a dad and then having to be a third grade teacher. And obviously, somebody's got to do some work in the family, but if it wasn't for you and your wife, if you guys aren't the positive bread in the family, you could bring the family down. And when the family's negative, it's your opportunity to be the positive side of that. So I think that's just something that was instilled with you as a young kid. And so this whole transition was able to, just continue moving on, continue going. Why worry about what you can't change? Worry about what you can change. And I know that's hard because COVID hit and you got kids at home and you're having to go through the process. Your motivation speaker shut down. So where was your mind during the process? I know, fortunately, you're in a go because you're having to teach your kids and you're having to keep that going. But there's a struggle in there of I'm not seeing people, I'm not talking to people. So what helped you get through that? Did you find something that was a trigger?
Again, I'm wired differently. I haven't struggled with that.
So you just kept on going.
I just keep going. If I hit a wall, I go under it, around it, over it. If I can't go through it,
don't stop.
I just don't stop. You struck a chord there with me with something you said. It was something from when I was younger. I wish I could say that again. I don't have time to share my story with you, but everything I am, I have become in the last 21, or I'm 40. I'm 49. I just turned 49 this month.
You're going to be in the 50 group here soon. Yay. Well, hey, listen, 55 is the new 27. I'm just telling you.
Yeah, but I just became, I'm just working on moving this guy forward that you see. I'm a very flawed human being that's blessed with an amazing wife. We have this motto: we never both, as long as both of us never quit on the same day, we're good. If she comes home, because she had to eventually go back to work, she comes home with something negative, I got to be positive, or vice versa. So I've got a great partner. But I have rewired myself in a way that I have my days where we're stuck in the house where I might wake up and not want to do anything. So I'm on my third 21 day. I call them, instead of, they say it takes 21 days to create a habit. I absolutely disagree with that.
You do it in the first day.
It's 21 days to get a rhythm going to work towards a habit. And I'm doing some right now of different things that I'm working on my kids with. I've just wired myself in a way that I hope that any dark days, I just keep fighting. Even with the cancer thing, we didn't know my kidney fell apart in my body. I don't want to gross you out by this, but I was passing parts of my kidney out of my body.
Man.
and
It really was breaking up.
it was clogging my body. I would physically have to move so I can go to the bathroom. And I can't tell you that I was miserable during that. I was in a painful car ride where I'm all clogged up and all of this, but I can't tell you that if God takes me today, I'm cool. I'm gonna be. It'll suck, but I know my wife is good. I know that what our plan for our children is good.
That's a great mindset right there, man. That's a great mindset, my friend.
I don't know.
It's
hard to explain all of that to you.
No, and I get it. You know, the thing is that we take life with punches and we just keep moving, right? And I said this earlier, you can't focus on the past. You just got to keep moving forward. But you just said something that struck a chord with me. And that's how you've already set your family up. You've set your family, you've taken your family away from failure and you've given them a future. So if you're gone today, it's unfortunate, it's sad and a little disappointing, but you know God's going to take you for a good reason. But your family's set. And if you're content with that, then you're rock solid. And that's really all that matters, because the rest of it's just nothing but noise. And I want to read you something. So if this can struck a chord with you at all, but you know, at 55, I've been trying to find out what my purpose is and find out where I'm at. And for years and years, you know, you had a father that would teach you different things, Zig Ziglar and Les Brown. And for me, I had different people all over around, but I had several people that would just mentor me and guide me in certain ways. And this one gentleman, friend of mine, sat down with me this last month, actually, and had me sit down and really kind of describe who I am. And I had to read this from a third person because after hearing all these things, he's like, dude, you're a kick-ass person. Excuse my French, but you're rock solid. You've got a lot of things you need to share, but you're not giving your potential, and you're just taking yourself down a negative road all the time because you're putting all these words in. And yeah, you are trying to tell a story, but you can change it. You know, you're talking about changing the narrative. So why don't you change your narrative? So this is what we wrote the other night. And it's already struck a chord with a few people, but it's very short. You may know me, you may not. All you need to know is that I can change your life if I'm in it. I'm not for everyone. I know my truth. I know who I am. I know what I do and do not bring to the table. At times, I'm not easy to deal with, but I do bring tons of value. I bring love, I bring strength, and I am far from perfect. And if I do not fit in with the person, that is okay with me. I cannot help everyone, but I do make sure that I make an impact in the lives that allow me to be in theirs.
Amen.
I don't know that I ever thought about that defining me, but that's where I've been. I've had this out of body experience back in the 80s where I believe God took me away. I have no other way to describe it, but later on in the evening around 7:30, I'm sitting in my house, or my apartment, in the couch, and I couldn't remember how I got there. And I had a lot of bad things happen to me, family wise and friend wise. And so I was at the end of my rope. And so I don't know if it's something something God manifested in me. I have no clue. It's not for me to judge, but I do remember the one thing that came out of it. And I do believe that God told me I had a gift to help. And so I've tried to live with that all my life. So it's not how I come up with my motto, live life, don't let life live you. But, you know, I'm a human being, and I'm, like you said, we're flawed, but I'm not going to focus on that past. I've got to focus on what changes I can make for the future for me and for my family. Me and my family, we're good, but I know a lot of other people are not.
Right.
So let's talk about your book for a second before we close up this show. But you wrote a book a few years ago. Are you gonna your story that was in the book? And I've read just excerpts of it. So did that lead from your motivational speaking? Did it lead to something you need to share in the book? Was there a reason to something impact that?
Everything in this particular book, I wrote a book before I did this book, but I chickened out to do anything. It's still sitting in the computer because
is that going to come out someday?
That's what'd you say?
Is that going to come out someday?
Someday. It is, absolutely. I wrote a book about my experience and knowledge that all the stuff in that book I've used to help other people, or I've used to help myself. So that's what 80-20 rule is.
Okay.
And it was the easiest thing because I wrote the first book, a mind map that had it out. It's all in the computer. And I hit that point of nobody cares about what I know. Who cares? I can't even now. I've wiped a book out of my mind. It's in my computer. I got to go back and even look at what's in there, because then I said, okay, Harvie, you got to get your first book out. You got to get it out. What can you do? You give. So here's what my book is for. I wrote this book. So for Harvie Herrington in 7th grade, little 7th grade Harvie Herrington, me, or little 3rd grade Harvie Herrington II sitting on the couch. I wrote this book for that kid that had that dream to play football, and he didn't know anything about football. And he came to me and he said, hey, I've watched you. I know what you do. That just made me think of a kid that came to me in college. I watched you and know what you do, and can you help me become the best football player I can be? And I said, well, if someone came to me right now, I can't give them all of me the way I used to before I moved. So what can I do? I can give them this. I can say, hey, all of the physical sides, the exercises, the weird things that they do at training, you can find all of that on YouTube, but you can't find all of this on YouTube. 80-20 rule, 80% of after you get fast enough, strong enough, and can't reach anything else, it's your thinking process. So all of these things like personalities, I couldn't have made it into the NFL and had a shot with the personality of that 7th grade kid because he was too soft, too loving, too caring, and football was a warrior sport. So one day somebody taught me how to change my personality, and then one day I read Dr. Rome's book on personalities, and I had an aha moment, so I researched it. So everything in here, qualities of a great self-leader. I already wish I can rewrite part of it because of what, I talk about Tom Brady in here. I talk about Michael Jordan. What really made those guys great. There's better athletes than Michael Jordan.
Right.
We know physically there's better athletes than Tom Brady. Yet Tom Brady just won his 7th Super Bowl at 43 years of age. Why is that?
Right.
Because of this.
Right.
So for any kid from the moment they hit sports and can read a book through college, this book will give them nuggets. It's a book. There's little bitty stories in here, but it's a book that you have to say, qualities of a leader. Oh, let's pick one. Leaders are great at serving others. Good one. What does that mean? You got to serve. You got to be a good server. You got to be a good listener. And then you can go back. You can focus on that for a month or two. Am I a good server? Am I a good listener? Is this my personality? Does it fit well? Just how do I become the best me? Not lead the team. That'll happen organically, but lead myself. So that's what I wrote this book for that kid that doesn't have the right coaches or the right home upraising or family and all that. That was me. So all I did was wrote a book for me, that little kid. Because most people wouldn't make it as far as I did. My dream was just that powerful. That's all I can tell people is my dream was just that powerful to keep me from going down the same path as my brother or sister.
So where would they get this book?
If you want it signed, you get it off my website, harvieherrington.com. Just make sure it's spelled correctly. You get it off my website, it comes signed, or you can get it on Amazon. They're same price. Mine's $12.99, and that shipping is included in that.
Awesome.
So yeah.
Well, I'm definitely going to be getting one. That's for sure. I'd looked on there and I was going to show the website, but I know we were getting close for time. I did want to make sure that you guys all, if you're listening, it's harvieherrington.com. So it's spelled HarvieHerrington.com. So harvieherrington.com, go there and get your book. And like you said, if you want it signed, there's an opportunity you could do that. I have 2 questions that have come up recently, and this one kind of goes back to the previous, and some of my listeners don't know that we asked the questions towards the end of the show. But Lisa Mills asked about your injury. Did you suffer from CTE?
No.
No.
I don't.
Okay.
No. Mm-mm. It was
That's
all.
good.
No. I don't have, it's amazing that I don't, and we don't know what shows up later on, right?
True. Yeah.
I think I'm still all there. So.
Well, and so it's like, so I know Lisa Mills, she works with veterans and stuff and athletes as well. And so I have a friend that's, he's been out of, military, probably, I don't know, 12 years, maybe 10 years, 12 years, 13 years. And he's just now having problems from exposure to silicone in a silicone stand in Afghanistan. And they don't know what's causing it. There's no cure because they don't know what's causing it. So they thought it was asthma, and asthma's not there. And they're treating it like asthma. But finally they had to put him at 100% disability because there's no drugs working. He's not suffering, but at the same time, it's just like, wow, how did it come up? Well, it's been there all this time, but later on, it just happens to come in.
All right.
I got another colleague, friend of mine. I know this guy, Joe Castillo. So, hey, Joe, if you're still watching, he said, I'd love to get into motivational speaking. Being a martial arts instructor and a father, I do a lot of speeches. I can tell you this is a guy that does, but if you could help him, I know him personally. He's ran a radio show here with me for KBGI for many years. If you could give him a few key points, how would he get into motivational speaking? I know he can do it. He's a great talker if you knew him, but I know he needs that push. So what would you tell him?
I'm going to tell him the same thing a guy told me when I was a kid, that when I wanted a gym, I was at this private gym in high school, and I always talked about Big Harv's gym. And he was like, kid, I'm going to tell you, I love what I'm doing, but you better be prepared to put in the work. Here are some basic rules, and some of them I don't follow, but it's just the research I've done and the courses I've taken. You got to know your lane. You got to know your message. What is your message? What does it fix? Well, how does it help? And you have to know the audience. So you stay in that lane. My group, we hit about 4 or 5 different lanes. You know, when Sam's Club called me and say, we need you, I'm like, why? I talked to students. So I had to figure out why Sam's Club needed me so I can talk to other corporations. That's what led me down the corporation path. My heart is with the youth and teachers. That's where my heart is. So that's my forever lane. But I know that there are adult people out there that need my message, because I'm not teaching you how to be a great salesman. You know, I'm not even teaching you how to necessarily lead people. That'll come naturally with the information that I give you. Right. So it's a lot of work. It's tedious work, meaning it's a lot of emails. It's a lot of no's. It's a lot of grinding. How you really get better is when you get your chance at bat, you can't strike out. You can't strike up. And you're still thinking, okay, in the terms of baseball, you're still batting 300. If I can bat 300, meaning that I'm striking out seven times out of 10 with a lot of no's. As I sit here through my watch, I've got an assistant that's constantly popping out emails and stuff like that. So I get all the responses popping up here, and most of them are 99% of them are no's. I go from one group to the next, from one school to the next, because of how I did the first day. That very first talk I did, that principal turned around and put my name in what's called an IPA system for Illinois Principal Associations. It bloomed, and it slowed down, and it bloomed. But it's a word of mouth business. But you got to know that. Know your lane, have your message, be good at delivering your message. And it's got to be something you love. Don't go try and speak about something that you don't much care about. When somebody calls me, this is my wheelhouse, I'm not leaving it, because then I'd be giving you, I'd just be finding content to give you with no heart behind it. I want to share content that's going to make me cry, let alone as well as make you cry.
Absolutely.
I think that's important. But again, he himself may want to work in the corporate world and teach about selling and do 8-hour workshops. And I don't want to do that. So, again, he's got to know his lane.
And I can contest to that. I didn't know my lane when I was doing some speaking, and it wasn't in the lane that I was comfortable with, but I think I set myself up for a failure. I knew that I was going to do this big talk, and it was going to be to a lot of women. And I knew it was going to be I thought 50, but when I found out that it was going to be a couple hundred, I was like, women, me? Is there not going to be a man in the room? Oh, well, there may be a maintenance man or something like this, but you're speaking to women. I was like,
You set him
what do I
down,
got to share?
please.
Right. And I went, I did it. Don't get me wrong. I did it. Right. And it was great. It was fine. I found that they were easy to talk to. And I just was really methodically slow, and I talked in a great pattern, and I did a good job. But a while later, I had another event to go to, and it was going to be more hundreds than that. And I'd never really spoke to more than maybe 50 to 100 people at a time. So then I knew that I was going to be somewhere around 1,000. And I was telling my wife, and I was setting myself up for this failure again. And I knew, I had in my mind, I'm going to choke. I'm going to choke. I don't know these people. I don't have a value. I don't know what I'm going to do. And my wife said, when you find yourself in a moment, you can be a comedian for just a moment. So never stop, keep going, but it's okay to tell your audience what you're doing.
It's real.
And
it's
so
real.
It is. And so I got up there, and Harvie, I choked, and I knew it. I knew what I was going to choke. And my wife said to me, she goes, you're a geek. So when you can't find the information you want, go back to you being a geek. How many monitors do you have on your desk? Well, I'm looking at 6 monitors right now. Ooh. So you tell people, well, hold on a second. I lost my train of thought. Let me go to this one monitor. And you describe what you're doing, and people laugh, but they continue moving with you. Right. Yes. And then finally it's like, oh, it's on the left monitor. Okay. Got it. All right. Here's my message. And boom, you're back in. And then if you can get that rhythm, you don't stop.
Tell her that's amazing advice. It's people sense when you're not being real. When you're a robot from stage, they don't want that.
Yeah, true.
Fall asleep.
Yeah, they will.
Your personality, you're high energy. You're an I personality. And like she said, if you're comical, let it go.
People laughed. In fact, I thought it would be, well, I don't know exactly what I thought, but I think I had a fear there for a second that they're all going to think that I'm this worthless failure guy up here, and I don't know what the heck I'm talking about. And here I am. I'm going to describe where I'm going, and because I can't remember. And I was honest. I just told them, I said, I don't remember what I was talking about. I totally lost my train of thought, and I made a comical part of it, and then everybody laughed, and I was like, wait a minute, they're not laughing at me, they're laughing with me.
Yes.
So that helped, but it's because I think I've had some people help shine the road, and that road has helped me a little bit. And if I could tell you that on some of the speakings that we do, it's with 6 to 20 guys and on a military base, and these guys come in, and it's like watching these 16-year-old kids come in. They're all slumming. They're all just relaxing. They're just like, I'm gonna be another class I got to go to. The military's got me in, but we have a positive attitude when they walk in the room. We make them sit up. We talk to them. We're talking one-on-one. We're having a conversation, and show's over. It's 45 minutes later, right? And they're like, "Well, that wasn't anything." And then they start talking. Then you can't get them to stop talking. And it's because you just changed the motivation. You changed the value in the room to being, you're worth something. And so we're not just here to just be up here and talk to you. We're here to help you and educate you. There's a reason why we're here, and you need to take benefit of that. And so it's taken a while to get to that role, because I really don't feel like I'm a value when it comes to the leader of that. But hey, so let me ask you this. I know people can go to HarvieHerrington.com. And I know that you've gone through some cancer, and I know that you've had your family's had some setbacks, not being able to motivational speak, and you're getting there. If you're looking at 2021, I know you're looking at maybe later this fall. What is it that what do you want to accomplish this year? Because you're still in this virtual world. Unfortunately, we're not fully opened up. Can't really go out there in the world, and you still have concerns about your health issues. So what's your next pivot to get into your next motivational? And if you are you just going to slide into it, or are you looking to pivot somewhere a little differently?
I have no pivot. I'm online with where I need to be. Health wise, I'm perfect. As perfect can be. I got blessed that the kidney fell apart inside of its own shell. That was the whole thing when taking it out. If there's going to be cancer outside of it, then everything we know from last May, that it's good. Now, I'll give an example. So I only got one kidney left. It's not great. It's only functioning at 30 some percent up. So I'm in stage 3 kidney failure.
Got it.
But there's no pivot. Yeah, I won't call this a pivot. It's something that I'm already doing. I want to become an exceptional writer. So I've got to start taking some courses. I've got so much on my heart and in my mind that I need to. I've got thousands of notes that I'd like to put in books to help. So that's, for me, that would be my fallback. Let's just say I lose this kidney and I go on dialysis, then I'll just do workshops for the rest of my life online and write books.
Right.
But I hope to get back out and be back out in front of people by summertime. But there's no pivot. I think this chapter is my final lifetime chapter. As for me, everything else is about our children. What am I doing to make sure that they're doing and headed in the direction that they need to be in? God has given me an amazing life, to say the kid where I come from. And I'm very happy with it. I always say, if he took me today, I've done well for him, even before I knew it was for him. So no pivot, no change. We've got a marketing business that I'm dabbling with, really getting it rolling again, because that's been one of our saving graces over the years. Because when I started speaking, I left my career. I packed up my family, moved, dropped everything. Done. This is it. So we went to work on this with my wife's income and what we had coming in on the side. So no, there's no pivot. There's no change for me. If I tell someone else that, depending upon your age, you just got to go back and look at the things that you've accomplished along the way. That it's like, so you're working for something. My friend Frank Kessler says, aim for the eagle, bag the pheasant so you don't eat crow. The eagle is your big main goal, but all the things that happens along the way of that goal, you're figuring things out. So if you never get that goal, go back and look at your past and see, okay, here's a subject of something that might be interested. I can do it. I enjoy it, and it makes me money. So for me, I know what I'm doing. I know what I want. I don't foresee me changing and going any other direction in my life, versus can't wait to get these darn shots. I don't know why we're in our state, so I can get out there. I know like mindset. I know I'm going to have to wear a mask for the next year and a half, maybe,
right,
just to protect myself. I'm cool with that. Just give me my shot so I can go get out.
I want to do my normal things. Right.
Yeah, so we can get our kids back into school.
Right. Dad's not tired of being he's not tired of being a third grade teacher, but he's tired of being a third grade teacher.
So yeah,
he wants to go to fourth grade now.
No pivoting from me. Becoming a better, I've always wanted to do anyway. I just got to put the time in to do it, to get my grammar where it should be, my written word where it should be, and to learn how to tell stories better.
That's hard.
It is, but here's the thing. Like I said, you got to be original today. People don't like fake. There was a guy out there that wrote a book, and I remember picking it up at the bookstore and skimming through it, and I was like, this is horribly written, but it was real. I can't think of his name. He's this guy that did all of this running, did like 100 marathons in 100 days or something weird like that. Dave, I can't remember his name. But he put this book out, but the book was real. It was not, if someone says, oh, if some English professor graded and was like, grammatically, this is incorrect and it should be structured this way. That world doesn't exist for most of us anymore. It's about putting your heart and soul in the right content and the truth in a book or into your message. Again, that's for that guy that asked the question. And you mentioned it. You're going to, in that quote that you can come up with, it ain't going to be for everybody. We have to remember that. Because I struggle with that, Mark. I struggle with that big time. I want to change everybody.
Right.
I had one kid in 18 years that I heard, he didn't even tell me, that he doesn't feel like I did anything for him. And guess what? I'm talking about him out of hundreds or thousands of kids. It bothers me that he said that, because what did I miss that he didn't feel like I gave him my all? But we can't save everybody. Zig Ziglar tells the story about the guy and his grandfather kid and his grandfather picking up the little shells and throwing them back. And he was like, you ain't going to do anything. He's like, it made a difference for that one.
Yeah.
You've already said that.
Well, I think that's for some of us, for me, I found my purpose is to help people. Listen, I have really good ears. I have such good ears that I can hear a bird still chirping up in the tree. I may not be able to see as good as I was, but I can definitely hear. And so I hear people, but listening sometimes is the easiest thing to do. Mm-hmm. It's, without going into speeches, what words, what can I share with them? What wisdom, what guidance can I help them with? Because a lot of people are really, at the end of the day, just looking for a little bit of help.
Yep.
So how can you guide them? Right. You can't help them. You can't do everything for them. And I know my good friend here, Joe, he made another comment. He says, my heart is with misguided teens for like myself. Now, Joe is a little bit of a MMA teacher. He teaches kids. And I know him personally, and it's not about the MMA. It's not about the fighting. It's not about kicking the trees. It's not about kicking the gut on the inside. It's about what happens right here. Mm-hmm. Because that's power to hurt somebody, but that's not what MMA is about. That's not what his classes that he teaches. Right. His teaches are all about mentality. Why are you here? Why are you learning this instruction? And, but in any case, dude, it's been, I feel like you and I could probably talk for a good while and keep telling stories. And, it's taken me a long time in my life to get where I'm at. It sounds like you've been doing this for a good long time and you're going to continue doing it. And so I applaud you for that. And, you've had some accolades in your life and you had some great careers, but it's led you to where you are. Mm-hmm. And that's the path, my friend. You got to keep going. I think God sets you on a path and you're just going to continue going down that paved road. And if the road's not paved, God's going to help you pave the rest of it.
That's right. Surely will. Sure will.
So I know you will change those. So everybody, if you would like to get his book, if you'd like to know a little bit about Harvie, go to his website, harvieherrington.com. And, man, I thank you so much for your time and effort today to come out and tell your story and share just a small glimpse, but just to let us know what makes you tick and what we can do to be inspired. And if you had to leave today with a message, I know it's putting you on the spot, but if you just had one person in front of you that you needed to inspire today, what would your message be?
Something hit me last night. I gotta look at it here. Give me 1 second to pull it.
See, up. I knew it. He's got something there for us. And Joe, thanks for listening out there while he's looking that up. I did see your message that you said, thank you, Harvie. And I'll put it up there on the screen.
So it's not clean, but I hope you get it because it came to me last night. When you stop being selfish, you can then begin to attack all of your fears. I was discussing this with a couple of guys, and we were like, what's on top, fear or selfishness? Fear. A lot of them were saying fear. And we were like, no, it's selfishness. If you stop being selfish in so many ways and you start doing what you're supposed to do, you can attack all of your fears, all of your weaknesses, and work on your strengths if we stop being selfish. You talked about being a good listener. That's all about not being selfish.
Right.
So that would be the message that I would say right there today. Focus on how to not be selfish. Stop you in that fashion. You always got to take care of you. You always got to be a great leader. But if you just serve, stop being selfish, you can attack all your fears after that.
Amen to that. And with that, guys, Harvie, thank you so much for coming on. Don't go anywhere. We're going to end the show. But guys, go to harvieherrington.com. This was episode number 9, Live Life podcast from Live Life. Don't let life live you. And because there's no other option, you have to continue living. And if you're thinking that you're in despair, man, get a hold of somebody. Call me. Call Harvie and reach out to somebody.
Email harvieherrington@gmail.com. Email me. I'd be happy to talk to you.
There you go. Guys, thanks so much for listening. I know this was a longer podcast today, but this was a good story to get out. And Harvie's an easier person to talk to. I think him and I could just sit here and talk for another couple hours, and we'd be like, "Oh, honey, I'm sorry. It's dinner time. Okay."
Right.
Okay. But have a great week, everybody, and thanks so much for listening to Live Life Podcast. And until next week, we'll see you there for episode number 10.